some things because you can play man-to-man against a lot of their receivers. You can try to shut down their passing game. And Shakir is really their only legit wide receiver option that you have to think about. And he's more so run after the catch slot kind of receiver, which can be dangerous, but I just didn't see him. He's not the explosive threat. He's not what Stephon Diggs used to be for this offense. And Dalton Kincaid's been good as a tight end, but he wasn't the transcendent talent you thought when you drafted him where you did. And Dawson Knox is solid, but that's your top 3 pass catchers. That's not good enough for an offense that you need to put weapons around Josh Allen to go win a Super Bowl. And part of it is you miss on draft picks like Keon Coleman. So Brandon Beane being safe is a little interesting in this. But I do think they needed a change. I think sometimes you just need a new voice. And it can be scary going into the abyss of not knowing, especially when you're opening up a head coaching job in which 10 have opened in this cycle, which is crazy to think about. Almost a third of the league is getting turned over this year at head coach, which, by the way, I don't know if that's a positive or a negative that Washington didn't really evaluate their head coach. Might be a positive in the fact that where do you rank in attractiveness of some of these jobs? Like Baltimore's probably more attractive. Buffalo's probably more attractive. Pittsburgh, in terms of roster, isn't more attractive, but because of the stability is maybe a little bit more attractive. But you're going through some of these teams, and okay, maybe some of these are more attractive jobs than Washington. But at the same point, if Sean McDermott, if Mike Tomlin, if John Harbaugh, if some of those guys can be fired, why couldn't a head coach that just fired both coordinators and probably isn't going to call defense next year being seriously evaluated? Regardless, I think that you look at Buffalo and where they're at. If they bring in the right guy, they're going to be right there once again. And maybe it's just something that a change of voice gets you over the hump. Because how many times are they going to run into these spots where they need to go win a football game and they're just not able to? Whether it's the 13 seconds game against Kansas City, whose fault is that? It's not Josh Allen's fault, right? But at some point, you've got to be able to finish that game. That's coaching. That's players not executing, which comes back to coaching, in my opinion. So at some point, unfortunately for Sean McDermott, even though they've been a really, really good football team for a long time, I think it was time for a change of voice in the Bills locker room. Want to take a look back at the divisional round as a whole, though. 800-636-1067 if you'd like to hop in. I think that you had another spectacular weekend of football in the NFL. You look through each and individually one of these games, and we'll go through each one by one chronologically. Broncos-Bills were the first one in overtime. Broncos winning 33-30. I mean, the big question out of this one is catch or interception. Bo Nix now out for the rest of the playoffs. We'll start with Bo Nix being out. I want to get into the catch or interception. You want to hop in again, 800-636-1067. I think plenty of people have thoughts whether that was a catch or it was an interception. Again, I lean interception. We'll dive into that in just a little bit. But Bo Nix being out for the rest of the playoffs, it really sucks for Denver because we're going to dive into this a little bit later. That 2024 QB class, obviously here in D.C., we have our guy in Jaden Daniels. So we spend plenty of time talking about him, and we've had the discussion about Drake May and Caleb Williams and all. They're all awesome, frankly. Aside from maybe J.J. McCarthy and Michael Penix, you saw Caleb Williams make some plays. But how much does it suck for Denver to get into the playoffs, to be the 1 seed, to get it done, to feel good going into the final field goal there? And Bo Nix is the only guy in the stadium, seemingly, that understands that I think I might be done for the year. And he doesn't even really get to fully enjoy the win because of the fact that he knows he just screwed up his ankle a couple plays prior. And now he's going to be out for the rest of the playoffs. Jarrett Stidham going to get the start. And look, I'm not one that likes to complain about when there's football and, oh, man, we got to get the best game and this and that, whatever. I don't really care about that. As long as football's on the television, I'm good with it. But, man, it's tough. Jarrett Stidham against Drake May. And Drake May hasn't had the best playoff performance. We're going to get into the Patriots-Texans game in a little bit. But it's not like he's been stellar in the playoffs. The Broncos' defense is really, really good. Is there a chance that the Broncos can come up with a great performance defensively and slow down the Patriots enough that Jarrett Stidham puts up 17, 21 points and they win the ball game, and Jarrett Stidham is starting a Super Bowl. That's just crazy to think that you've gotten to that point. But I think this speaks to the craziness of this season as well. That even if Bo Nix were in this, you'd be looking at starting quarterbacks of Bo Nix, Sam Darnold, Drake May, and Matt Stafford. And two of those are the presumed frontrunners for MVP. But it's not like Stafford lit it up last night against the Bears. It's not like Drake May's lit it up in the playoffs so far. Darnold had to do next to nothing against the Niners. And Bo Nix played fine. Is more so he just didn't lose his mind like we saw other quarterbacks do in this divisional round. And let the defense do its work. And he came up with some big plays, but Josh Allen, also on the opposite side, the reigning MVP, kind of played pretty poor football. It's just crazy that this season has played out this way, but I don't think we should be surprised. This year, or this playoffs has kind of been a microcosm of what we've seen this season, where the teams that we presume are going to be there, the teams that we presume are the top dogs, just haven't been all year. And so you end up in a spot where defense, in a lot of ways, has been the driving force for this playoffs. And I kind of like it. It's a little bit of a throwback. I enjoyed watching that game last night, where it's a defensive chess match. It's how is Sean McVay going to adjust to these nickel blitzes off the slot there for the Bears? How are teams going to be able to slow down the pass rush of Denver? How are teams going to be able to beat a Mike McDonald defense, right? I enjoy these defensive chess matches, and I think you've seen some of that so far. And the quarterback play, I wouldn't say has been stellar in these playoffs, so maybe it gives Denver a little more hope that going into this one, it's not like it's been quarterback dependent to keep moving on so far in the playoffs. 800-636-1067. We'll go through each game individually in the divisional round. You want to hop in, give your thoughts on those games, or some thoughts you have about the Commanders after watching some of these games, feel free. 800-636-1067. Tobi Altizer sitting in for BMitch and Finlay on the Fan.
This update brought to you by Reynolds, Empower Home Team, Keller Williams Realty. The Buffalo Bills have fired head coach Sean McDermott after another season of failure in their pursuit of the Super Bowl. Bills general manager Brandon Beane has been retained. He will help lead in the new search for a head coach. This from Adam Schefter. The Bills lost to the Denver Broncos 33-30 in overtime in Denver on Saturday.